Welcome to even more stats about the PowerPoint Stickman team. Pause. Something doesn't feel right. Where's the old narrator years ago when he last did Purple's lore? The old narrator got tired of waiting from Devon Jett's lazy butt to finish the lore, and that he had to hire a new one. I'm the new text-to-speech voice, Grandpa, and I shall give you the lore. Unpause. Pink Stickman Khan, Pink Gem Bonder, Phoenix DNA infused, 16 years old, Stickero number 9, Tertiary Stickman, Blood of Blossom Phoenix wielder. Get close to the one you love, or your loved one, Valentine, whoever. This story will show not just the compassion this lore contains but also how one can expand upon its definition for her people. Somewhere between the clouds are ancient spirits and souls, holy spirited souls representing the Greek gods. Greek gods like Medusa, Achilles, Hercules, Pegasus, and much more. But in this Stickman universe, a mythical bird that protected, fought, and loved its people for over 900 years. The legendary Blossom Phoenix, who proclaimed herself, had a diverse range of healing, soothing, and aiding spells to cure any illnesses or injuries her Blostazons sustained. Blostazons, if you don't know what they are, lived in the Blossomverse as either believers or worshippers of the Blossom Phoenix. She also had the lifeblood of a phoenix, meaning she could sprout her wings to use them as offense, defense, or flight maneuvers and cleanse herself like a phoenix can rise from the ashes and scorching flames. But not all of it at once because of the time it needed. The Blossomverse religion was celebrating its 900th anniversary when all the Blostazons gathered around each other, eating feasts, singing songs, decorating homes with tons of blossom and rose petals, and dressed up like falcons, flamingos, phoenix, and a variety of other birds to represent her, because the phoenix out of any other flying animal brought them all together in this world. Everyone in the celebration felt like they were being loved and cared for, with hugging and kissing. Everyone was building communities and relationships for up to 900 years Blossomverse existed. Everyone was offered some of Blossom Phoenix's scripture and her writings for those who felt down, upset, or sad, to tell them to do what she said all would be good. During the ceremony, the sky turned strangely red. A suspiciously red to believe that was it meteors were coming down on the universe? No, not just many, but one gargantuan-sized meteor known as Hell by the Blostazons for its previous destructions and explosions. It hasn't been this relentless since its last release in countless years. Blossomverse and Hell were enemies at war for centuries, and neither one has given in, with both sides dealing with loss and defeat. This time, Hell wasn't holding anything back. First, the meteors split into hundreds. Next, they scattered all over the universe, burning down every village and building to the ground. As the Blostazons tried to fight back or evacuate, it was already too late. Most of them died from severe burns and injuries the meteorites caused. They couldn't hold them back well, or they were unable to escape. As the last meteor closed in on the cherry crutch, the universe's place of worship for its blossom nature and gracefulness, the Blossom Phoenix intervened, partially holding the meteor in place. The meteor drastically increased in intensity, eventually putting heavy pressure on the Blossom Phoenix to the point of slightly pushing her down, and as a last stand, she released pink gusts of wind surrounding her, all to form a rosy, pedal windmill twister that charged to push back against Hell but ended up sacrificing herself in the process. Hell was finally repelled, avoiding further damage caused in the Blossomverse, and the Blostazons can relieve themselves. Unfortunately, minutes later after they all gathered at the Cherry Church to figure out restoration, started to wonder where the Blossom Phoenix was. The priestesses of the church announced that she had given her life to stop the meteor rampage in Hell. They found her but felt like the entire body wasn't heating up immensely from overexhaustion, and unable to regenerate from the magma-like flames. This caused sorrow and outrage from the Blostazons, in which some of them even questioned her durability and strength. Was she just that resilient to hold them off? Is her sacrifice in vain? Is this protection a reminder of how much potential and will could be replicated if that matter fell into their hands? There were too many questions that could be considered truthful, yet the priestesses took time to address and answer them and also scheduled a funeral day for the Blossom Phoenix. Days later, approximately 9 million Blostazans were present at the ceremony, giving their thanks, praising her guardian status, offering roses, violet dandelions, and cherry blossoms at her grave, singing hymns, writing expressive poems, finally lighting candles for spiritual healing. They even wrote letters on top of her casket hoping to get the scriptures and calmness they needed. She was buried near the church and a statue was carved there to honor her glorification. As weeks passed by of the Blossom Phoenix's absence, the Blossomverse fell silent. There weren't usually vibrant, energetic, or joyful people seen during the Cherry Church's sessions, because most of them didn't feel like it wasn't in the mood, couldn't cope with the loss, and even stopped believing in the Blossom Phoenix. Divided most of the Blossomverse religion against the goddess, leaving the church and village affiliated with her, cursing the priestesses out by ambushing them while they're off guard or interrupting/yelling during one of their speeches, done repeatedly, which caused them to get exiled, and turning to 8 other legends they founded. To name them: the Bougainvillea falcon, the fuchsia hummingbird, the carnation eagle, the peony parrot, the zinnia owl, the ranunculus toucan, the geranium finch, and the gladiolus crow. They have similar traits and necromancy to the Blossom Phoenix, with each done uniquely, possibly with different paths of how the Blossomverse's peacefulness is defined. But what if one of the legend's paths were proven to be false and led to an even scarred image of the universe instead of it being faithful? Lots of Blostazans did not care about the warnings and repercussions they could have been struck with from the priestesses convincing them. They ignored them and stormed out of the church, also leaving the village behind forever. A moment of silence later, the priestesses found that only 1/9 of their Blostazans remained. One stood out from the rest. Over their sights, they found a special kind of a Blostazan who was standing up to get noticed, a young loving soul for the faith she put into Blossom Phoenix most of her life, a kind and compassionate Stickman that would be willing to aid, comfort, affectionate, and be therapeutic for anyone in the village. They knew about her past and family line, giving them the title of village shamans, having regenerative powers equal to the priestesses of Cherry Crutch. They also knew she had the potential to replicate the Blossom Phoenix and rebuild the Blossomverse village from its merged continents and tribes, back to the huge Pangaea it used to be. Her name was Pink. Pink is a color closely associated with love and kindness, which revolves around Blossomverse's theme, and also a color closely associated with the mythical phoenix's feathers and entire body, the flower cherry blossom. They needed to take her in and train in the ways of the Blossom Phoenix to fight, to heal, to praise, but also to charm. Not only that, but they also took in their Blostazans to do the same. Within years of discipline, everyone looked prepared. The priestesses gave everyone a small but symbolic and meaningful reward. They made all Blostazans traditional clothing to represent the Blossom Phoenix, with pink glazed white striped tunics for males, light pink dotted short skirts for females, and both have cherry blossom headpiece worn culturally to top it off. All they needed to do was find solutions to reconcile with the other tribes and break off their idolatry. But it's easier said than done. How the lost Blostazans are tied and manipulated into believing the fake bird gods are real and never backstab their ancestors. Before that, the priestesses needed to figure out who was going to be the general of the Blostian Union. Fortunately, Pink was unanimously elected due to her status and the support given to the village over the years, and the priestesses respected the decision. Before the group went out, the priestesses gave them the blood of the Blossom Phoenix from a jar stored sacredly at her grave and some crafted weapons of wood and steel that looked decorative of cherry blossom flowers, swords, bows and arrows, spears, bladed gauntlets. For the blood, they took a small amount and poured it into the Blostazan's bottom hand wrist to be blessed with her restoration powers. Now that the group was ready, Pink suggested tackling the tribe of the gladiolus crow, which they journeyed toward. The priestesses prayed for them. Along the journey trail, the group found that there was a tall, rounded mountain following the tribe's main entrance. This would seem like a long haul to climb up there, also considering it's close to 1,000,000 feet tall, but the blood of Blossom Phoenix started to rapidly flow and spread all over the Union's veins and body. They've been given the ability of flight. They were wondering how this happened, as all similarly assumed that this was from her. Pink was delighted to feel her presence and protection and knew that she would be willing to have certain students inherit her powers. With no time to waste, they sprouted out blossom wings and ascended to the top of the mountain, and what they found looked very neglected of the Blossom Phoenix's practice. The idols practiced organ sacrificial rituals which were extremely rare and taboo to the Blossomverse universal law. There were many Stickman organs and body parts placed into a bowl near the gladiolus crow statue, and in turn, the sacred text below reads, "If one is willing to give their parts of life, one in return shall receive great claws." Everything that was in the bowl started to make sense, and as they were about to investigate it, suddenly the tribe ambushed the Blostazan Union from behind and demanded they leave immediately, otherwise they would be sacrificed as well. They also looked very terrible, with most of their limbs being prosthetic, and replaced with body parts of a crow's wings and claws. The Blostazan Union stood their ground and fought back against the tribe on top of the mountain. There was bloodshed, bruises, broken weapons, torn clothing, and exhaustion, but the Blostazan Union emerged victorious. As they were about to reconcile with the tribe, they refused and turned to recklessly sacrificing more of their limbs to the fake bird god, demanding a rematch, until Pink halted them. She said they would rather turn back their faith to the Blossom Phoenix they once had to be forgiven, and sacrifice would only be done to willingly protect others and not for selfish gain, yet they didn't believe her. "Your god must be on vacation," said Pink with a chuckle, and unexpectedly began making hand movements and gestures toward the gladiolus crow tribe. Her eyes were also glowing. She began to charm them, reversing all their memories, damage sustained in the battle, and some of their limbs, but not all of them. The tribe was dazed and confused about how they'd come here until looking around realized what part of a cult they become. They are mostly distraught about it, and even the Blostazan Union was shocked to look at how she pulled this off, and they were never taught this secret ability. The now disbanded tribe of Gladiolus Crow no longer followed its practices or god at all due to its diminutive gift, and they prefer to rejoice with the Blossom Phoenix. Pink approved with a nod and grin. Then they went to reconvert every other fake god tribe back to what it originally was, sometimes with the Union keeping its normal size of combatants, and leaving most of them behind back at the village near Cherry Church for protection purposes. In the following order, they reconcile through the paths of the fuchsia hummingbird, the carnation eagle, and the peony parrot, with each having similar outcomes but different resolutions. The first one, the Blostazan Union, was backed against the wall of the tribe's expertise in aerial fighting until Pink made a big leap, spread her bladed gauntlets out, and then span to all of the tribe and pricked their wingspans to disable their flight. Also, don't worry, they were removed after she healed them. The second one involved the tribe's weapons outranging the Union's, and Pink supported and commanded the ranged members to open supporting fire to help the melee units. She also rushed down the ranged members, swiftly disarming them, and stabbing them, but with purified effects to turn them away from that fake god too. The third one involves the peony parrot tribe replicating every previous action, and Pink tries flying straight up into the sky and one of the tribe members copies her. Except when she flew, she descended straight back down and the copy followed, even more were too. She fell long enough to a point that the enemy tribe felt helpless, as right before she hit the ground, repositioned back upright last second, and all of them fell unconscious. Pink felt like the Blossom Phoenix's blood was flowing through her, as if the Blossom Phoenix thought of her as the chosen one, her perfect student. She felt heavy influential power flowing and used her healing powers to resurrect the fallen peony parrot tribe. Wondering what happened, she told them that they had been brought back to life and revitalization abilities were improving. The Blostazan Union approved and applauded her efforts. With 5/8 tribes reconciled back to the Blossom Phoenix, there were only 3 left, those being the Zinnia Owl, the Ranunculus Toucan, and the Geranium Finch. The Blostazan Union set out on the final three, with the first two, Taucan and Finch, being a cakewalk, but the last tribe, the Finch, wasn't going down so easily. The Blostazan Union traveled a dangerous path through a forest with wild environmental hazards, such as snakes, boars, beehives, and bears. It also included rising paths to take, as the last tribe was up on high hills, with steep hills, shortcuts, and climbable rocks, inside a cave. The group made it through that part, although sustaining mild injuries. They continued venturing as normal. Unfortunately, as they were approaching the entrance, bumped into a fraction of the Finch tribe practicing their rituals. They quickly realized that they were under attack from intruders of another tribe that disagreed with their idol. One of the Finch members blew the battle-screeching horn, alerting others inside the cave into defensive positions to ward off the enemy. A clash erupted between the Blostazan Union and the Geranium Finch. There was a bit of trouble, but the Blostazan Union prevailed. They proceeded onward inside the cave and they already ran into another enemy tribe horde blocking the path to the statue. They fought off more of them as they went on, but it seemed like there was no end to them. Pink suddenly realized that they were being held back for a long time for the tribe to avoid any form of disruption during their idol worship. Pink thought of something. She told some of the Union to split into three separate groups. One group would revitalize the fallen Finch members and reconvert back to Blossom Phoenix followers, and the next group would cover every part of the cave that is also a maze and fight any Finch members they run into, and the last group would only have a few people, including Pink herself, find the statue outright through the maze, avoiding and fleeing every fight if possible, except for the guardians of the statue. The Blostazan Union seemed skeptical of the idea at first, but they understood her intentions well and obliged. An hour later, many Finch members were being defeated and reconverted, and Pink's group was getting closer to the end. They finally found the statue later, but with Finch members protecting it, armed like Spartans with Finch wings as shields and geranium flower decorative spears or crossbows as primary weapons. There were also booby traps involved, making this statue nearly impossible to destroy. Pink and her group were in extreme danger and would be unable to get reinforcements on time because of how far they were into the maze. They had no choice but to fly through the entire horde of enemies and attack them from range, so Pink and her group were in the air traversing through most of the area and killing lots of enemies with their bows and arrows. Making good progress, they were closing in on the statue until another problem arose. There was a combination lock in the form of 4 separate vases, each containing a geranium flower with varying heights of stems that had to be placed in the right order to solve if the statue were to be destroyed. Otherwise, people who weren't part of the Geranium Finch couldn't break or interact with it in any way. They were about to look for clues, and suddenly the entire enemy tribe surrounded them from behind. There was nothing they could do. Was this the end for them? Pink and her group closed their eyes, bracing for impact, but Pink felt yet another surge from the Blossom Phoenix's blood through her veins, and time started to slow down. The rest of the Blostazan Union arrived along with the converted members, as they were about to charge at the army, but most of them blindly fell prey to the traps, quickly ambushed by other Spartan Finch guardians, and then it all stopped. Everything, but Pink, has paused. She wondered why everything felt motionless around her. As she began walking around the cave, nothing was moving. The traps weren't triggering and the arrows shot in the air were stuck in place. The army cornering her ground was at a snail's pace and felt like they couldn't do anything. Pink looked at the top of her right-handed wrist and noticed her veins bulging a vibrant pastel galaxy color, realizing she could now slow down time and that this was a hidden skill from the Blossom Phoenix, which she used to briefly halt Hell's meteors, for presumably her perfect student. Pink noticed that the pause was temporary and she had limited time to freely move through frozen time before the effect went into cooldown, so she made the most of it. She arranged the flowers in the correct vases, went to the high peak of the garden cave, flew all around the charging Finch army, dropping lots of her blossom wing petals of purification, also breaking all airborne arrows, and finally reversed the damage for her allies who fell into the traps before time resumed. When time resumed, all the Finch tribe members stopped themselves from attacking. They thought that they were being unexpectedly reckless, and were confused, and so were the ambushers too. They helped up the Blostazan Union, rejoiced with them, apologized profusely for all their idolatry actions, promising not to practice them ever again, and would be happy to put their faith back into the Blossom Phoenix. The statue was crumbled, which disabled the traps and mazes walls, and made it an easy exit. The place also rumbled a bit but didn't matter much as the renewed Blostazan Union planned to celebrate the complete victory and reconciliation of the Blossom Phoenix tribe when they got back to the village. Hours later, they returned only to find their village suddenly caught by wildfires. As they were clearing out the flames, Pink felt a sudden shock in her heart, as if someone special she knew died. She immediately went to check inside the cherry crutch, and her heart sank. Slowly breaking into tears, she saw not only lots of corpses, but the priestesses were dead on the floor having severe volcanic burns on their faces and cloaks. The same for the corpses found, including her parents. She was immobilized in sorrow and fear, until looking around the church, and she found the people who killed them. They had magma-like stickman skin, wore molten lava hood cloaks, and wielded staffs that could produce magma magic attacks, even powerful scorching heat that cancel out any healing/regeneration effects, and can call upon Hell's meteors. When Pink tried to bring the priestesses and Blostazans around her back to life, it was ineffective. These three stickmen were known as the Hell Trinity. They were the main reason and cause of the meteor shower that killed many Blostazans during the Blossom Phoenix's 900th anniversary. The Hell Trinity looked behind them wondering about the silent whimpering, and saw Pink. She immediately pulled out her bow and shot 3 times, but was quickly deflected by a magma barrier, and one of them threw a magma missile in retaliation. Pink dodged it and switched to her bladed gauntlets to attack. As she charged at the Hell Trinity, one of them blocked her attack and countered with a staff swing coated in magma to her stomach. She immediately fell into a coma and couldn't stand up from the impact. She felt a burning inside of her body that was permanently stripping her of Blossom Phoenix's blood and healing abilities, and there was nothing she could do to prevent it. The last thing Pink saw before blacking out was the Hell Trinity teleporting out of the ruined church. Another year has passed, with all of the priestesses buried alongside the Blossom Phoenix at the cemetery. But Pink wasn't. Why? The Blossom Phoenix tribe took a closer inspection on her, and at first with no limb twitching, no breathing, or eye movements, she was presumably dead. Until feeling the heat of her body, her pulse was still active, and her mouth was slightly elevated. She was just in a coma and needed to be aided, so they carried her up and placed her down on a cherry blossom-filled stone bed and kept her there to be faithful and respectful for their leader to return. The Blostazans went to pray to the Blossom Phoenix hoping for a miracle the following year while also remembering to celebrate her birthday and achievements, and sure enough, they were answered. A bright shining pink light came on top of the ruined church and the ghost of the Blossom Phoenix appeared. Everyone was stunned watching her descend from the heavens and got even better because the priestesses also appeared. They requested the Union disciples who were present in the early breakup of the tribe to step forward and assist them in creating Pink a special weapon to combat the Hell Trinity. The Blossom Phoenix held her left hand out and had an empty, worthless jewel in her palm, and then her right hand out which started to transfer her power into it. She commanded the priestesses and disciples to do the same. Lots of power was being poured into the jewel, and it started changing to look more like a gem, a pink gem to be specific. The pink gem contained powers of the Blossom Phoenix's bloodline of vitality, along with the priestess's secret techniques, and interchangeable weapons of a bow that can be split into 2-bladed gauntlets. It started floating toward Pink and upon contact, finally awakened her. But before that, she had a vision of being approached by the Blossom Phoenix. In a space on a cloudy platform, Pink found herself on top of them. She looked around wondering who was meeting her, and then came a huge sunset cloud that looked like the Blossom Phoenix. She asked the reason behind all this. The Phoenix explains to Pink that she is a perfect student and descendant to carry her bloodline, hence why she will be rewarded with the pink gem created by her and the tribe, to help defeat the Hell Trinity. Also gave her a small gift for her best efforts in preventing further damage done to the village, a short skirt customized fully with pink cherry blossom petals and the flower itself as a headdress for being promoted to the leader of the tribe. Pink willingly accepted the offer and thanked her, and the Blossom Phoenix said back, "No, thank you for all of your dedication and gratitude to restore our universe," before fading out and the vision ended. Pink now has the power and blood of Blossom Phoenix raging through her veins and body, and immediately bursts with newfound confidence and determination to exact revenge on the Hell Trinity. The Blostazans cheered and praised her resurrection and idea, but they did not know their whereabouts. Pink wondered about that too. She thought that their place may be back where the rumble occurred, possibly setting off another meteor storm, the cave. She told everyone that their base could be back in the cave where the separated tribe Geranium Finch was before. Everyone thought of it for a few seconds and all eventually agreed in general that the rumble, some felt it was a sign of impending doom. They all took a long treacherous walk back to the cave, but they finally made it. When they were inside, something felt off. The entrance was pitch black, there was no one to fight, and most parts of the cave felt empty. Where are they? The entire tribe just stood in the middle of the cave dumbfounded, until seconds later the ground started pushing downward, and everyone took notice. Pink saw hordes of magmamen equipped with heavy swords, axes, spears, and clubs scattered throughout a hot, dry underground cave. There were 4 doors on 4 ends of the entire room, meaning this was only the entrance of the base. The tribe realized this was a maze for intruders to get to the main point of the meteor generator. Pink knew she would have to try the same strategy as last time to find a way through, except smaller groups of Blostazan weren't strong enough to stand against the magmamen. Whenever they attacked them, they ignored it, became impenetrable to it, or took lots of hitting to break it. They are called magmamen as their skin is made of magma, a hard earth core material that can't be broken easily, but their weakness is that they are slow. So Pink took advantage of her time-stopping ability and put both of her hands together to release, but unfortunately, it needed time to charge, and she told her tribe to hold back the magmamen until her ability was ready. A few minutes later, most of the tribe was exhausted and weakened from trying to defend Pink, but the magmamen weren't going anywhere. At the last second, as one of them was about to kill a Blostazan, Pink released a time-stopping shockwave that slowed down everything in her way to a halt, excluding her tribe. She told everyone that she was going to the main source of the meteor as she was the only one with the true blood of the Blossom Phoenix and had some chance against the Hell Trinity. The tribe obliged and said that they'd hold off any incoming enemies or magmamen to make way for her. Pink zoomed through the entire maze, covering every part of it, but was getting nowhere near the source. She double-checked the entire maze but heard a machine rumbling behind one of the walls. She went to hear it, and then a conversation sparked between 3 similar-sounding people, those being the Hell Trinity. She tried kicking the wall down as if it were a secret door, but it wouldn't open and time was running low for her slowing ability. So she also tried to cut down the door with the help of the Blossom Phoenix's bladed gauntlets, and it was cut down to size. Pink found that there was the Hell Trinity, the core generator that creates the meteors, and multiple levers that control the spawn rate and behavior of the magmamen. She went to deactivate the levers first to make things easier for her tribe but was prevented by one Hell's Trinity mastermind. Then she suddenly realized that her time-stopping ability had come to an end and found 2 of the other masterminds behind her. They dared her to even make one move. They would release even more meteors into her village, but Pink wasn't intimidated in the slightest. She tried to shoot down the core with her cherry blossom bow, but one of them caught the arrow in midair using their magma staff. Now they started to circle her, slowly, in anticipation. Pink entered a battle-ready stance and switched her bow into bladed gauntlets. One of them tried to throw a magma ball at her, but she dispelled it with a simple swipe of the wind that came out from her weapon. The next one swung his staff at her, but she blocked the initial hit and countered it with a thrust, knocking him back. No attacks were made for the next 9 seconds until Pink started to quickly attack one of Hell's Trinity she was facing, catching the other two off guard. She was wailing at one of them so heavily that they tried to ambush her, but both attacks were blocked simultaneously with one-bladed gauntlet, and the wailing one retaliated to only be quickly intercepted by her other bladed gauntlet. She crouched then sprung her legs kicking both of them backward to continue on the wailing one, and when he finally found an opening, she slow motion evaded it, and slashed him across his stomach to kill him. The Hell's Trinity too seemed distraught with how powerful she's become. The second one starts throwing multiple magma magic missiles at her, with Pink constantly dodging them and shooting back with her bow. After seconds of firing back and forth, she thought to make a calculated shot that could both hit the lever and bounce off the wall into his head to drop his guard. So she tried hoping it would work, with the arrow hitting the lever, bouncing off the top right of the wall, to the left corner, and the back of his head, which he swiftly dodged. But he had no time to reposition as Pink leaned her bladed gauntlets onto the shaft part of his staff. He tried to raise himself and push her back but became disarmed by his staff being lifted by her backward with both arms and then stabbed in the chest. There was only one mastermind of Hell's Trinity left, and he wasn't willing to go down without a fight. He took off his cloak, powered up his staff, and his body started lighting on fire. He was serious and tired of playing games. Pink stood her ground and assumed a battle stance. Both stared at each other for a brief moment, even acknowledging each other too. The long silence was broken with the first clash between them, followed by repeated exchanges continuously. Neither one was giving an inch. Last of Hell's Trinity got close to Pink to prevent her erratic movements, but she had something else in mind. After parrying the last blow, she slid underneath him to ambush him but saw it coming and quickly blocked. She then tried to intentionally have her attacks and repeated her strategy, but now by leaping over him and another ambush, which also failed. Even though he was keeping with Pink's tactics, it started to become too much for him, and turned to the offensive pressure. She capitalized on this and dodged every single swing. She found one sluggish swing that came from him and easily countered it by pushing him back with her bladed gauntlet, tiring out the last mastermind as he couldn't do anything to fight back. Pink thought that this was the end and emerged victorious, but surprisingly the last of Hell's Trinity still had one more trick up his sleeve. He saw that the meteor generator was fully charged and that Hell could be unleashed on her village for the last time. He then told Pink that although she had won the battle, she could lose the war if the next meteor shower wasn't prevented on time. He fell to the ground and took his last breath before finally ceasing to exist. Pink came to the generator and saw that it was already charged and suddenly realized she couldn't just destroy it. She would have to physically fight off the meteors herself. With no other option, she left the secret room, flew through the entire maze, and told her tribe that because she was unable to stop the generator, she would have to take on the meteors. Everyone immediately refuted the idea as would put her in danger, questioned it heavily, and wondered if she'd end up with a similar fate to the Blossom Phoenix. Pink told everyone not to worry as she had more utility than her. She would even take the fall for a good cause, and for the sake of the Blossomverse. She had no regrets and committed to her mission. The tribe gravely understood her intentions well and said they'd be on the lookout for meteors that came to the village. She appreciated it and they all exited the cave. They looked up to see if any were coming from the cave, which happened shortly. Pink flew toward the meteor's trajectory, and the tribe rushed back to the village. Pink saw that there were 9 meteors, with 8 of them being slightly smaller than the biggest one, which she assumed was Hell. She pulled out her pink gem and clenched it as a prayer to give her the strength she needed. She started by shooting the first 3 down with all of them exploding, next by slashing down the other 4, and finally leaving the only small and giant meteor. She tries to turn one of Hell's meteors against itself by healing it with a lot of vitality from her regeneration, which makes it pink in the process. She rode the meteor straight into Hell but it quickly exploded before it even made contact. She also tried to use her bow against it and her bladed gauntlets, but no dent was visible, and Hell was still going perfectly. She gave an inspection and saw that there was some kind of force field that immediately burned weaker objects before and would only halt against stronger things, like another powerful mythical creature or something equal to its strength. She knew that she would have to replicate the same struggle, similar to how the Blossom Phoenix tried to stop Hell. She poured all of her resolve, belief, and energy into her body and veins, charging right into Hell. Pink found it very troublesome to hold it back, and that continued ignoring her to eventually inflicting a knockback. She was pushed back and continued to pursue it. Upon looking far, it was to the village. It was nearby. She tried again, only to be pushed back and pursued. She realized that if she didn't stop on time, not only her village would get destroyed, but the entire Blossomverse would be extinct, judging by its defeated explosion causing a massive disaster compared to the smaller ones. She felt like giving up at first, but she realized if she were to let it go and not even bother to try, it would be disrespectful and shameful in the Blossom Phoenix's image. Her tribe was also counting on her. She found her steadfast perseverance and gave it one last shot. She clenched her gem again, felt her veins bulging and surging through her body, and was able to finally hold Hell in place. She then pulled out a bladed gauntlet and stabbed in front of it. She even tried to give up some of her life force to reconvert it into a pink meteor, and progress was slowly being made. Minutes later, half of Hell turned pink, but it was persistent and would stop at nothing to destroy her universe. Hell started to heat up even more and burn to a point that it became as hot as the sun. So scorching hot that it was reversing Pink's conversion effects. Pink still kept going and stuck her other hand to speed up the process and started yelling. The spirits of the Blossom Phoenix and priestesses of the Cherry Church came to her aid, placing their hands on her shoulders. Pink's conversion ability became extremely overpowered and overwhelming for Hell to handle, so it slowly succumbed to its remaining half and turned pink. Finally, Hell was no longer in motion as a meteor and turned into an enormous flower ball filled with cherry blossoms, and exploded near the village. At the same time, Pink fainted. The Blossom Phoenix tribe looked above them to see where the huge shade was coming from, and were overjoyed to find that it was raining cherry blossoms. But they wondered if Pink survived, as they looked around the village to see where she had fallen. It happened to be back at the ruined church. They did the same thing as before when she was in a coma, and placed her on the stone bed waiting to get up. After minutes of anxiously waiting to see if she was alive, she got up looking very exhausted from using up all her energy to stop Hell. Pink was confused by everyone staring at her and not saying a word. She thought that they were waiting for her to announce her victory. She even saw cherry blossoms floating above her and admired them before grabbing one. She firmly stated that she won and Blossomverse would never be in danger ever again, because Hell's been defeated. The entire tribe cheered and applauded her speech, as they decided to celebrate their victory. They started by renovating the village into an even bigger glory, with Pink redesigning and renaming the church Cherry Blossom Church, writing scripture for advice and prayer to her tribe. Pink holding therapeutic sessions for any members struggling to cope with their past or current problems, making new clothing for the tribe to wear out of leather and mostly cherry blossoms, getting people to know and love each other quietly, and promoting her fellow disciples she was with to become generals and priests for the church and the village. This all continued until 9 days later. Pink's gem was glowing and she pulled it out to see what it wanted. The pink gem said to her that despite all odds and dangers stacked against her, she kept her calm and found the preservation to keep moving forward and continue to support her tribe in the worst times. Her healing was a cultural blessing to the universe and it was used wisely. It said that she would be a perfect fit for a special union she should join, a team of PowerPoint Stickman. Pink wondered how that was possible and if the time trace was accurate enough. The pink gem started shaking and she put it down for it to reveal a portal. She was shocked to see it and was about to leave, but not without giving a going away speech to her tribe. She went back to the church and told everyone to sit down as she was going to tell them something. She announced that she would be sadly leaving them behind. The tribe was outraged and confused about how she could leave the Blossomverse, and Pink gave a demonstration using her gem. She showed that the portal led to another universe more complex than hers. The tribe was surprised by its appearance and they wondered who was going to take care of them if she left, with her suggesting that her promoted disciples would be the ones capable of doing that. The tribe said their final goodbyes, gave her hugs and kisses, and promised that they'd be prepared for her return at any time. The spirits dropped in and thanked her again for everything deeply from the bottom of their hearts, including her parents. Pink felt so grateful for all the thanks and gratitude she'd been getting, and without a second to waste, she jumped right into the portal. She leaped through nearly 1,000 years to the future and came across a huge cardboard house. Pink assumed this could be the team's apartment, and went inside without second-guessing herself. She went into the training room to meet who? Only time will tell who she meets. Only one last Stickman to go and the base team is complete, but that story is for another time and to be continued. Happy Valentine's Day to you and your Valentine.